All right, welcome. Today we are jumping headfirst into one of the wildest, most transformative decades in all of history, the French Revolution. We're going to talk about how an entire country was basically torn down and rebuilt from scratch, all in just 10 years.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just pause and think about this for a second. I mean, what does it really take to completely flip a society on its head? We're talking everything: its government, its laws, the way people even see themselves. It sounds impossible, right? Well, just keep that question in the back of your mind, because that is exactly what went down in France.
So, what was the French Revolution, really? Well, the official definition calls it a complete transformation of the society and political system of France, and it all happened between 1789 and 1799. And you gotta pay attention to that phrase, complete transformation. That's the key. This wasn't just, getting a new king. No way. This was a total rewrite of French life, from top to bottom.
And just look at this. This really puts the sheer scale of the change into perspective. In 1789, you've got France as an absolute monarchy. The king is in charge, and that's just how it is. Fast forward just 10 years to 1799, and boom, it's a republic. A government supposedly run by the people. That kind of shift, in that short amount of time, it was absolutely mind-blowing back then.
Okay, so a change this big doesn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? It's more like a pressure cooker that's been building and building for years. So what finally made it blow? Well, it all kicked off with this growing, simmering discontent.
And what was fueling all that unhappiness? It was basically a perfect storm of three major problems. First, the people were just deeply unhappy. At the same time, the country's politics were a mess, total instability. And to top it all off, the economy was in the tank. When people can't eat and the government isn't working, something's got to give.
So to really get what a big deal this was, we've got to look at what they were tearing down. Let's rewind to before 1789. France was an absolute monarchy. And this wasn't some new thing. This system had been locked in place for hundreds of years.
And what does absolute monarchy even mean? Pretty simple, actually. The king had all the power. He monopolized it. It wasn't shared. The people didn't get a say. It was all in the hands of one guy who, by the way, was thought to have been chosen by God. And that was the foundation that was about to get completely shattered.
All right, so that's the before picture. So what was the after they were aiming for? What was the big goal? It was the total opposite of what they had, a republic of citizens.
And this right here really says it all, doesn't it? You're going from a system where one guy has all the power to this idea of a nation made up of, theoretically, free and equal citizens. That's what a republic is, right? Power is supposed to be with the people, not some king. And let's be clear, this was way more than just swapping one leader for another. This was a complete reinvention of how people and their government were supposed to relate to each other.
But, the story doesn't just stop in 1799. Not even close. The ideas that came out of the French Revolution created ripples that would be felt for centuries. And its impact went way, way beyond France. This was a truly world-changing event.
I mean, don't just take my word for it. The historical sources are super clear on this. They call it one of the most important events in the history of Europe. That's a huge statement. We're putting it up there with any other major turning point you can think of.
So why was it such a big deal? Because the effects were massive. These new ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, and especially that super dangerous idea that ordinary people could actually overthrow their king and rule themselves, man, that idea spread like wildfire all across Europe and even the rest of the world. It lit the fuse for so many other movements.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this crucial point. The French Revolution wasn't just about reform. It was a total replacement. The entire system that had run France for centuries, the special treatment for nobles, the power of the church, the king's ultimate authority, all of it was torn down. And something entirely new was built in its place.
And that brings us to our final thought. And it's a bit of a tricky one. Remember how the new republic was a nation of theoretically free and equal citizens? That one word, theoretically. It carries a ton of weight, doesn't it? It really makes you wonder, what does it actually mean to be theoretically free? It's a really complex question, and honestly, it's something people are still wrestling with today. Thanks for digging into this with me.